Welcome back and congratulations. You've organized and implemented your first learning activity. But before you celebrate and move on to planning your next one, the work is not quite done. It's important to take time to reflect on the impact of your activity and whether or not it achieved the objectives you set forth in your proposal. RAs are asked to conduct some sort of formal or informal assessment following each learning activity, yes, including campus events, and at minimum must complete a follow-up evaluation for the activity in RAS. These evaluations serve several purposes. One, it gives the RA an opportunity to reflect on the event, considering what they did well and what they didn't do well. This helps the RA improve and refine future activities. Two, it provides helpful information for other RAs who may want to replicate the program. Finally, it provides valuable assessment data for our department. In other words, it gives us evidence that the things we are doing in the residence hall are in fact having a positive impact on our students. So while this data is important for you individually, it also has a larger impact on the department. So let's get started. As you can see here, we are logged back into the programming section or the learning activity section of our RAS system. And you can see now that after your activity has passed, it will pop down here to this section called Your Activities That Need Follow-Up. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. The first few things of information here are pretty straightforward. The date, which should automatically populate to the date of your activity based on your proposal. But if it doesn't, you want to adjust that. Who are the staff members involved? So you would put the names of the individuals who are part of the event, although if it is an entire building, you do not have building staff. For a building-wide activity, you don't have to list every name. You can just say the rental staff. What is which residence hall did this take place in? Again, very simple. What are the positions of the presenters? So our RAs were involved, our CRL was involved, and our hall council was involved with this event. Is there a collaborating or supporting department? So if you partner with an outside office, you can see a pretty extensive list here of potential partners that were involved, or if none of them are listed here, you could hit Other and type the name of the partner there. In our case, we didn't have any partners, so I'm just going to click None. What kind of activity did you conduct? We did a building-wide activity. Which office sponsored the campus-wide event? So for those campus events specifically, you would input which office sponsored the event, but for the other types of activities, you would just leave this blank. Please provide a description of the learning activity. So if you recall from the proposal tutorial, what we recommended that you keep that information in a separate Word document. And if you did so, it'll make it real easy to just copy and paste that over. Now, that being said, if your event changed or didn't pan out the way you had described it in your proposal, you may need to make some adjustments to that based on those changes. But assuming it went according to plan, you can just copy and paste that information from your proposal. Which learning outcome did this activity fulfill? So in this case, hopefully you fulfilled the learning outcome, or the focal area, that you intended to fulfill in your proposal. But you may find that you unexpectedly fulfilled a learning outcome you didn't intend. Let's say you partnered with the Office of Leadership and Service Learning to do a strengths assessment, and during the reflection of that assessment, you end up discussing how individual strengths can be applied to academics. In that case, you can say that you met the leadership development and the academic excellence focal areas, even if you only started out intending to meet the leadership development area. So in our case, we said that we were going to do student engagement, and we are sticking with that. Moving on to attendance. Now, this is something that you should count or track during the event, whether it's through a sign-in sheet or just a tally sheet. And you may also like to keep track of this maybe through your connections of knowing how many people have been to my programs and how many of my residents have been to more than one. But either way, be honest and realistic with your attendance. If only 3 people show up, put 3 people. You won't be penalized for not having a lot of people at your activity, but you may be asked to reflect on why attendance was low so you can improve that in the future. Also know that it's not so much about the quantity as the quality. So if you only have 3 people, but those 3 people learn some valuable lessons, then that's a successful learning activity. So in our hypothetical program, let's say we had 60 people. How many faculty attended? So if you had faculty participate in your event, you could indicate that there. How successful would you rate this activity? As we said, success isn't measured in just numbers. So here, you really want to consider the effectiveness of the program in achieving your stated learning outcomes. Once again, be honest. Don't just give yourself a 5 because you think it looks good. Remember that one of the goals of this evaluation is to provide realistic appraisal of your program so that you can improve and refine it next time. So I'm going to give myself a 4 on this hypothetical event. Why is there a need for this activity? Again, this goes back to your proposal of why you thought this activity was needed, but here we give you some more particular things to choose from. So for our example, I'm going to say that community observations and realizing that we need to work on building that community, as well as community traditions, because this is something that we've done pretty consistently over the past few years. The next section asks you about resident feedback. So here's where we ask you to utilize your creativity in figuring out other ways to assess your learning activity. You shouldn't, in any case, be checking not applicable, because seeking feedback should be a part of your programming routine. Some possibilities include a pre and a post test, where you test a resident's knowledge about a topic prior to and after a program on that topic. An example here might be getting residents a test on their knowledge of the LGBTQ community before Safe Zone training, and then giving them that same test afterwards and comparing the results. If you see an improvement in that knowledge, you know your activity has been effective. Another potential method is a satisfaction survey, especially for social events. Perhaps the simplest way to seek feedback is simply discussing the event with the participants immediately after. You could bring some basic prepared questions such as, what did you learn by participating in the activity, and what do you think would make this activity better? These questions can also be tailored to the learning objectives for the activity, which leads us to our final way of seeking feedback, a learning outcome evaluation. This could be digital or paper form, but the goal is for the participants to provide immediate direct feedback on the activity after the event. You could design one yourself or potentially work with your supervisor to design one that the entire staff can use. In the next box, you are going to input the results of that feedback. So I have taken the liberty of coming up with some hypothetical resident feedback here. We spoke to 10 residents informally about the event. All of them spoke highly of the event, said they enjoyed the opportunity to meet people on the hall. One specifically mentioned that she enjoyed meeting all of the RAs and hall council members so that she could know who the key people were in the hall. 3 other residents did mention that they wished there was more variety in the flavors of ice cream. So in this case, I've input that feedback, and based on that, we can see that that was based on a follow-up discussion. What could have been done differently to improve this activity? This asks you, now this is the time for some serious reflection on your own. How can I make this program better? Even if the program went well, how do I take it from good to great? You can also input feedback from your participants here. Bullet points, once again, can be very useful for this feedback. So some hypothetical ways that I can improve this activity: purchase a wider variety of ice cream flavors as requested by our participants. Begin setup 45 minutes in advance rather than 30 minutes in order to be ready to start right on time. And finally, as an example of a way to take this program from good to great, providing students with business cards for RA and hall council members to pass out. It was difficult for residents to remember everyone they met while proceeding through the line. So you can see there just 3 quick bullet points of ways I could make this activity better. Finally, we ask that you provide overall feedback for this activity. Overall, what went well? Is this the program you would repeat or recommend to another RA? Do you plan to nominate this learning activity for an Of the Month award through NRHH? And of course, any other information that you think may be relevant. So in our example, overall, we felt the program was a great success and a continuation of a valuable tradition in Reynolds. The RAs and hall council members enjoyed meeting residents from the entire building, and the residents seemed to enjoy this as well. At least 20 residents stayed in the recreation room for nearly an hour playing board games and listening to music. With the recommendations for improvement listed above, we definitely recommend that this tradition continue. So as you can see, this evaluation is pretty easy and straightforward. We strongly recommend that you complete it as soon as the activity is over because 1, the information is fresh on your mind, and 2, you won't forget to do it. It may also be a good idea to type that information in while you're discussing the event with your participants. It's as easy as that. And I'm going to hit submit, and now it has disappeared, and I've closed out what I need for that evaluation. So this concludes the tutorial on learning activity evaluations. Again, this is an important part of the learning activity planning process and implementation process, and we want you to make it part of your usual routine. Once again, good luck and good programming.